Hello, everyone. I hope you have enjoyed your weekend. This is the pre-work for today. We are going to learn how to measure the mass and volume of solid, liquid, and gas. And then I'm going to introduce you a concept called density. So for matter, we learned that matter is anything that has mass and takes up space. It's basically talking about everything in the world. Everything is a matter, including you. You have mass, you have volume, so you matter. Okay, everyone matters. Okay, so for mass, we kind of learned it in the Friday's work. It's measured in the unit of grams, kilograms, or milligrams. Normally, if we have some heavy stuff, we use kilograms, which is 1,000 gram, and the milligrams is 1,000 smaller than a gram. It's like a piece of sand. Okay, so how do we measure it for any solid? I know you have this experience. You probably measured yourself, and then also you went to the grocery store and you measured some groceries. Yeah, we use the scale to measure mass of the solid, and to measure the mass of the liquid, what we need is a container. Normally in the lab we use a glass container, and we measure the mass of the container first. For example, in here, this container weighs 3 grams. And then you put the liquid into the container and weigh them together, and you get another mass. What you do is this, subtract this from this, so you get the weight, the mass of the liquid. So you're going to watch a video which will tell you more detail of this kind of method. Okay, and then for gas, a quick question for you: does a gas have mass? Think about it. And also in the video, it will explain the detail how to measure the mass of gas. Okay, for volume, it's talking about the space the object takes up. Anything in the world takes up space, even some gas. Okay, how do we measure volume for any solid, irregular shaped solid like a rectangle shape or cubic? We can measure the length, the width, and height, and calculate it. The volume of this kind of rectangle shaped object is the length. We can measure length, the width, and the height, and calculate by using length times width times height. And because the unit, for example, this is a big object, and we use the unit for length is meter, width meter, height meter, and once we multiply them together, it will become to cubic meter. So the unit for volume is cubic meter. When it's a very small cube, like this, when we measure it, it will be a centimeter. So when we times all of them together, the unit is cubic centimeter. Okay, and for a irregular shaped object, like anything, many things in the world, it's an irregular shape, like this paper clip, and even this charger. Okay, it's irregular shape. How are we going to measure it? How can we measure the volume of SpongeBob or even ourselves? How do we measure it? What we do is we use a water displacement method. What is water displacement method is we first, if we have a small object we can fit into this graduate cylinder, what we do is put some water in here first. For example, in here it filled up 4 milliliters of water in here, and then we put these two marbles into this graduate cylinder. Then after we put the objects in there, the water would rise. Okay, water will go up to, for this one, it went up to 6 milliliters. So what we do is the volume of those two marbles, basically it displaced the water in here. So what we do is use 6, subtract by 4. That's basically the volume of those two marbles. It's all because the rise of the water is all because these two marbles. Okay, one thing I want to tell you is for the graduate cylinder, it normally have a curve. Okay, it forms a curve because water just stick on the glass. What we do is we have to, when we read from the graduate cylinder, you have to read from your eyes need to on the same level as the curve. So we are not reading the top, we are reading this bottom curve. Okay, that's the most accurate reading. I hope eventually we can go back to school, we can practice how to read from a graduate cylinder. Okay, for a volume of gas, normally people fill it up into a like a balloon or something. Then we try to measure it accurately, but it's hard because gas is everywhere. Once you put any gas into a container, it will just spread into the container. So basically, the volume of gas is the whole container. If we fill up, if we put 1 liter of gas into a room, it will immediately diffuse everywhere into the room. So the volume of gas is basically whatever container you put in there, that's the volume of the gas. Okay, so the reason we really want to talk about volume and mass and how to measure them is we are going to learn a very important concept called density. So what is density? It's talking about how dense something is. Okay, in the chemistry point of view, if you look at the smallest particles inside the material, eventually we're going to learn them. We call them atoms. So it's basically measure how tightly packed they are, how for example this one have two different kinds of particles in there, the red and the green. It's very tightly packed, and this one is loosely packed. So this one is more dense, this one is less dense. And also it also measures how heavy the molecules basically are connected as like contains a few atoms. It forms a molecule like water. It contains hydrogen, oxygen. We're eventually going to learn it. We call them molecules. It's basically a few atoms connect together. Okay, so for example, if this red and green one, they're more. Each one of them is way heavier than the material contained in here. So even though if these two, I should give you more picture. But anyway, if those particles are way heavier than the other materials particle, also it can have high density. We're going to learn more about density tomorrow, and also on Wednesday we're going to try to do a lab on Wednesday. Okay, so how do we calculate density? How do we determine it? It's basically density is equal to mass divided by volume. What we do is we measure mass on the scale, we measure volume by using the method we just learned, and then we divide them. Okay. Sometimes people say you have got to love your density because it looks like a heart. Here's M, here's V. Okay. Hopefully this way will help you to remember it. You don't have to remember it. We can always find the equation. But it's basically if you have something, if you have two objects, they have the same, for example, this two looks like similar. They have the same volume, but if one has higher mass, then the density is higher. Okay, we're gonna learn more about this. Just initially, you know the concept today. Okay, the unit for density would be, because mass has a unit of gram, and volume has a unit of cubic centimeter or cubic meter. So normally it's gram per cubic centimeter for solid, and for liquid it's gram per milliliter because we use a graduate cylinder to measure the liquid. So the volume for liquid is milliliter, so gram per milliliter. Okay. So hopefully you learned something today, and we're going to practice on Tuesday's live class, and we're going to learn more about density for the following 2 days. Okay. Hopefully you have enjoyed the video. Make sure to take some notes about density and the water displacement method, and do the add puzzle video. Answer the 2 questions in there, and also answer the questions centered in your assignment. Thank you.